Should have warned you. Good afternoon, Rotarians and guests. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Toledo. Today we'll present another great meeting with our speaker, Mark Poloncarz. First, I'd like to ask Butch Kruger to come to the podium to deliver a reflection and then have Jeff Anderson lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Well, this will be a prayer as opposed to a reflection. I hope you'll bow with me at this time. Today, Lord, we thank you for a beautiful, sun-shining day, especially as we see the beauty of your creations coming alive. Bless our time together here, bless this food to our bodies, and bless our country. In thy name we pray, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Butch and Jeff. As we begin our meeting today, I'd like to thank and acknowledge this month's sponsor, Connect Toledo Downtown Development Corporation. Greeter Kelly Schlachter will now introduce today's visiting Rotarians.
President Dick, we have one visiting Rotarian today. Visiting Rotarian, please stand as I read your name and remain standing until President Dick welcomes you. We have with us today Ken Robinson from the American Red Cross.
Ken, nice to have you here from the Perrysburg Club. Welcome. Now, if anyone has any other guests they would like to introduce at the floor mic, please come forward.
President Dick and fellow Rotarians, this old man beside me here, his name is Earl Mack. You might be interested to know one of the interesting things about him is he's a combat medic during the Vietnam War era. He's president of Buffalo Soldiers Motorcycle Club here in Toledo. He won the Jefferson Award this year. He was inducted into the Law Enforcement Hall of Fame this year, and he's my friend, Earl Mack. Thank you.
Welcome, Earl.
President Dick and fellow Rotarians, I'd like to introduce Erica Simmons. She is the owner of Elite Events, and she will be donating her services for our gala event that's coming up on the 15th of June.
Thank you. Welcome.
President Dick and fellow Rotarians, I am delighted to introduce Tom Hinkle, who, although born in Pittsburgh, was raised in Buffalo. And Tom spends most of his time working very diligently on retirement.
Welcome. Nice to have you here.
President Dick and fellow Rotarians, I have two friends and guests with me today. Todd Sturkin, who is Director of Development for the College of Law, has joined us today, and Beth Wilson, who is at HCR Manor Care Legal Counsel. Both are joining us today to hear Mark Poloncarz. Thank you.
Welcome, welcome. Nice to have everyone here. Thank you for being here. I'd now like to ask Member Engaged Chair Scott Hinshaw to come to the floor mic to make an announcement. And okay, it's subbing for Scott, Donna Bogan, the co-chair of Member Engage.
Scott asked me to do it today.
That's great.
Good afternoon. I'm here to mention to you about Kids Against Hunger, which we'll be holding on the 18th of May, 9 to noon. We'll be at Ottawa Hills Elementary. We've given ourselves a lofty goal this year because we're having some of the Interact, Rotaract, and other local Rotary clubs joining us. So instead of doing 30,000 meals, we want to pack 50,000 meals. So we'd really like anybody to sign up. It's a fun event. Bring your family. You can even, people bring their kids. We have a good time. Chuck Mann is our DJ. We have lots of fun. So please go to ToledoRotary.org and sign up. and come have a lot of fun with us on that day. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. And now I'd like to ask Ford Bennett to make an announcement about the Mesa bonus ride.
Good afternoon, everyone. Back up again to announce our annual Mesa Toledo bonus ride will be Saturday, June 8th. Thank you. You go to ToledoRotary.org, follow the links, and sign up. There will also be sign-up emails sent from the Mesa board. So everything is digital this year, no sign-up paper. We also have Jamie from Toledo Bikes, who will be providing bikes for those who either cannot bring one or do not have one, and he'd like to speak about that for a few moments.
Yes, Gotcha is proud to partner with you for this event. Some of you may not have bikes or may not wish to bring them all the way downtown for the event. So we are going to be giving you 3 hours of credit if you would like to ride a Toledo bike. As part of the sign-up process, you can select Toledo bikes so we know how many to have down there for you. You do need to have a membership set up to use the bikes, but the pay-as-you-go is a completely free membership. You can use it just for those 3 hours, and that's it if you would like. But as a special bonus for Rotarians, if you would like to sign up for an annual membership, normally $69, through the event day, we're going to give you a 25% discount just for Rotarians.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Hopefully we'll have a day just like today on June 8th for the bike ride. Now would be a great time to like Toledo Rotary and also to check into social media to let everyone know you're at the Rotary Club of Toledo Monday meeting. And then I ask that you please silence your phones so we can all enjoy the rest of the program. Coming up next week, we're going to have a special Women in Rotary celebration. It's been 30 years since Rotary International officially amended its constitution for women to be a part of Rotary, the best decision Rotary International has ever made. May 13, next week, we'll have a great group honoring women. Our own Sue Martin, who was the first female president of this club, will be speaking, saying a few words. So please be here for that. I'd like to draw attention to the Black Tie Affair, which is coming up on June 15, and especially our sponsors who will appear on the screen. There they are. We've got some great sponsors for this year's event. You should have all received invitations to the Black Tie Affair. Please consider inviting friends, others, buy a table. It's going to be a great event. We're roasting Joe Napoli. Walt Churchill is our honorary chair. It's going to be a great evening. I also want to mention that the Rotary District Conference, our district is this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning at Kalahari. You can sign up still for that event. There's information on our website and also the Rotary District 6600 website. I'd now like to invite Shireen Murad from the new member committee to make an announcement.
Hello, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. I wanted to discuss the Rotary Legacy Program. We want to make sure that everyone is involved with this program and everyone is engaged. So we want to build a long-lasting legacy. We really would like to identify people you believe that can continue the values and ideals that we have made as a club and instilled for generations. We want you to bring guests who carry on your legacy. To make this initiative successful, we need your help. We need you to invite friends, mentors, colleagues, guests to our events like the Kids Against Hunger or one of our lunches. To make those successful, I really believe that if you bring someone to a lunch that they care about the speaker or organization, they will walk away with happier thoughts and be more willing to come back for more events and more lunches. Finally, I would like you to keep a lookout for an email. It's very short. It's a couple seconds. It's not a minute. It's literally 2 questions. We would really want your input on capturing how you had a sponsor and who your sponsor was and or who you've sponsored in the past. We would like to capture all this data, and we'd really appreciate your help and your input. Please stay tuned for more of the Legacy program. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Shireen. It's a great program. Now I'd like to invite Rotarian Mark Urrutia to the podium to introduce a new member.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to introduce one of our newest Rotarians, Dr. Shanda Gore, who is the Executive Director at the University of Toledo and the founder and president of Mays and Associates for more than 15 years, a strategic planning diversity training consulting group. Dr. Gore has served in a number of capacities at the University of Toledo, including UT's first diversity officer and Vice President, Executive Director of 4 Community Engagement Centers. She holds her graduate adjunct faculty teaching status and responsible for the creation and teaching of UT's Graduate Online Diversity Certificate. 10 years ago, Dr. Gore founded and still directs the Minority Business Development Center, a business incubation center that houses 13 companies and 8 affiliates. She has served as a former director of one of the oldest women's centers in the country, the UT Eberly Center for Women, where she has led the most successful fundraiser for the Eberly Center Wait Night Dinner, which many of you have participated as well as I. Currently, she's successfully awarded one of the state's programs dealing with minority businesses, the Minority Business Assistance Center, which covers 17 counties, and just recently received a $400,000 federal grant from the U.S. Department of Commerce Minority Business Development Agency. She contributes the strength and success to the UT programs to her professional staff and places high integrity and strong customer service above all else. Dr. Gore is married to longtime Toledoan Mr. Bobby Gore, a proud Navy veteran and 26 years serving as a Toledo firefighter. She and her husband Bobby are celebrating their 25th wedding anniversary this year and has 2 teenage children, as I do. Dr. Gore's daughter, Shoshana Gore, 19, and attends and marches in the band for the University of Toledo Rockets, and her son Nathan, 16, is a sophomore at Sylvania Southview High School. Something interesting about Dr. Gore, which I didn't know when I first met her, was she enjoys playing music and plays very proficiently 5 different instruments. Her current main interest is jazz bass, as she sometimes can be found around town playing for fun. President Dick and fellow Rotarians, please help me welcome one of our newest Rotarians, Dr. Shanda Gore.
And now I'd like to ask Rotarian Ben Barros to come to the podium to introduce today's speaker.
Thank you, President Dick. Fellow Rotarians, it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Mark C. Poloncarz. Mark is the Erie County, New York executive. That's Buffalo, New York, and the surrounding area. He is the 8th county executive of Erie County. Under his guidance, Erie County has enjoyed balanced budgets each year, along with lower tax rates and increased investments in county roads, parks, libraries, and cultural organizations every year since 2012. Since Mark took office, Erie County's unemployment rate has fallen from nearly 9% to under 4%, and 47,000 new jobs have been added to the economy. In Mark's first term, he negotiated a new lease with the Buffalo Bills that kept the team in New York. And it's the only NFL team that plays its home games in New York State. For those of you who are not New Yorkers, as I am historically, the other ones play in New Jersey. He also led the way in forming a countywide land bank, one of the first in New York State to help municipalities cope with abandoned properties. Mark remains focused on the protection and promotion of the health and well-being of county residents. He created the Erie County Opioid Epidemic Task Force in 2016 to combat the opioid crisis sweeping the county, and later that year he served on the National Opioid Crisis Task Force alongside national peers developing community responses to the opioid epidemic. Since Mark created the Erie County Task Force, overdose deaths have decreased by 35%, and programs developed in Erie County are being copied across the nation. Mark has also made economic development a major priority through the development and implementation of his economic roadmaps, the initiatives for a smart economy. The original report, released in June 2013, and its Initiatives 2.0 version, released June 2017, provide evolving blueprints for the comprehensive, innovative economic development that brings partners together to leverage strengths across Erie County. Together, the two plans encompass over 130 target areas for economic development, focused on land development and redevelopment, international business attraction and trade, energy, tourism, agriculture, workforce development, and more. He's a graduate of Lackawanna Senior High School, the State University of New York at Buffalo, and is an alum of the University of Toledo College of Law, and we're very proud of him. Before becoming elected county executive, Mark served as an Erie County comptroller for 6 years. I had the pleasure of visiting with Mark at length when I met with Toledo Law alumni in Buffalo last spring. As I met with Mark and I listened and learned about what he's done in Erie County, I became more excited about the efforts that were coming together back here in Toledo. It took some time for schedules to work out, but I'm thrilled that he could join us to share some of his insights today. Toledo and Buffalo have a lot in common, so we're very delighted. Please join me in welcoming Mark Poloncarz.
Thank you, Dean Barros. I thank you for that kind introduction. I forgot about some of those things I've done. In government, you're always working on new things and you forget about the past, but yeah, we've done a lot in the last few years, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here today. To President Wolf and the entire staff from the Toledo Rotary, it is my pleasure to be here. As Dean Barros noted, I graduated from University of Toledo College of Law in 1997, and I moved back to Buffalo, where my hometown where I'm from, at a time when it was pretty bad in both communities, truthfully. As we all may remember what it was like in the Great Lakes region in the mid to late 90s. It was not the hoppin' place that people would like it to be, and truthfully where it is today. So I saw a lot, and when I came into town, I got in Saturday night, I wanted to go back and actually visit a lot of the neighborhoods that I remembered to see what was going on, and I am glad to see a lot of the development that's going on here, and I think it follows a lot of what we're doing in Erie County. So hopefully you will find this presentation instructive of what we're doing in Buffalo and Erie County as it pertains to what can happen here in Toledo and Lucas County. I'll give you an idea if you don't really know, but we're bookends on Lake Erie. So I really care about what happens with Lake Erie, the Lake Erie economy, the Lake Erie environment, because you got Toledo in the bottom and the southwest and Buffalo in the northeast. We still have ice on our part of the lake. With all those strong winds, it blew every bit of ice down to Lake Erie. Actually, at one point, the ice was almost 15 feet thick after some of those storms. So we're unfortunately dealing with the cold still associated with the ice from Lake Erie. Erie County, to give you an idea, there's 1,227 square miles of land. It's identical to the size of the state of Rhode Island. We have 925,000 residents. That's greater than 5 states. And we have 1,200 miles of county roads. From the sprawl over the years, that's actually more miles of roads that Erie County owns than the states of Delaware, Rhode Island, and Hawaii each have in total. So we have a pretty large infrastructure. And to do some comparisons, I wanted to give you an idea. Actually, the city of Toledo is larger by population than the city of Buffalo. But I think you got to look also at the bottom and see that square miles. The city of Toledo is actually double the size, square miles, of the city of Buffalo. And Buffalo is much more compact. And then Erie County is a little bit more than double the size of Lucas County. And if you see the trend in the history, both cities went through a very similar trend line, and communities went through a similar trend line of having population growth, of course, in the 40s and 50s and 60s, and then starting to see the declination through the 70s, 80s, and 90s. One thing that we're proud of that we've been able to do in my community is actually seeing population growth in Erie County. And the city of Buffalo is kind of hanging on to where it was at the beginning of 2010. It's lost a little population, but the percentage is fairly small. And it's because I think a lot of the things that we've been able to do to continue seeing growth in our community. Buffalo waterfront doesn't look that too much different than the Toledo waterfront. This slide, I like showing it because that that blue or that bar that goes up towards the what would be considered the northwest, that's the old Erie Canal, so Buffalo waterfront circa 1905. You got the Buffalo River, Lake Erie at the end, Lake Erie ending at the Niagara River just further up from where this picture would be. And so we were very much an industry town, a port town. This is the 1960s, major grain mills and ports. We still have quite a number of grain mills. General Mills has a major operation. But I like showing this picture because you see that bridge, it's called the Skyway, and how it goes into downtown Buffalo. And then it sort of heads north, and you can see how the work's ending. Well, what it is, it's the work that's beginning. We had the Erie Canal, and we decided in our beautiful views back then that the best use of the Erie Canal, instead of tourism and further growth, was to pave it and put a superhighway over it. So we put a superhighway right over the Erie Canal. We'll get back to that later. Not a really brilliant decision, but it was done. So Buffalo's economy was blue collar. It was Bethlehem Steel. It was Chevy, American Axle. It was a Ford plant. It was another GM plant. My father worked at this Bethlehem Steel complex in Lackawanna, which at one point had 22,000 employees, and during World War II was the largest steelmaking operation in the world. Neither of these plants are open and exist anymore. The Chevy American Axle plant had 17,000 at one point. It looks nice in that photo, but there's really no one in there except people are using it for some small industry, but it's not what it used to be. So our economy was pretty much blue collar, blue collar, blue collar. I don't know if you had similar billboards like this in Toledo, but in the late 70s, early 80s, this was a familiar billboard. Will the last worker out of Western New York please turn out the light? Concerned employees, 44-inch bar mill at Bethlehem Steel Corp. And for a while there, they pretty much did turn out the light. We, as a community, grew. We sprawled, but we didn't grow in population. The yellow color is Buffalo in 1950, and Niagara Falls is just north of it. That's 1.1 million people. The red color is 2000. That's 1.1 million people. So unfortunately, what happens is you have this tremendous sprawl. You don't really grow as a community because the population did not grow, but you have all this new infrastructure, roads, sewers, you name it, anything associated with government and ensuring that people could move out to further and further away from the urban core. It just created more and more needs to the point now where Erie County owns and controls 1,200 centerline miles of roads, which you always have 2 lane miles of roads for every centerline mile you have, which means if we started a 1-lane highway in the city of Buffalo and headed west, we own and control so many lane miles of roads, you would end up driving into the Pacific Ocean. Buffalo, Erie County, and Niagara County above it were an example of sprawl gone bad, just exactly what you don't want in a community. So the 80s hit, Bethlehem Steel closes, GM closes, we lose a lot of our blue collar. Used to have a longshoreman union, huge port's smaller, now we don't. So they started incentivizing projects. And it literally became, we're going to give a tax break to anybody who's going to do anything. So here's a project, a beautiful brand new Northtown Lexus, which was built across the street from the other Northtown Lexus and was given a tax break. Call centers, gotta love call centers. People come in and do jobs, so we do a call center. Of course, where did they build a call center? About as far out as you could in that area that was red, away from the urban core. Donut shops. Paula's Donuts is a great donut shop. If you come to Buffalo and you want to get a good donut, go to Paula's Donuts. But we should not be giving tax breaks to a donut shop to open a retail establishment. If you have a donut, what goes good with donut but wine? They gave tax breaks to Premier Liquor, a great company, really big, really cool wine place, retailer, to move a mile from the town of Tonawanda to the town of Amherst. Now, this is a regulated industry. If they even wanted to leave our state, they couldn't do it because all states regulate the sale of alcohol. So that's what we were dealing with, and what I came into, and I said, enough's enough. We're not doing this anymore. I'm county executive. You don't have a county executive in Lucas County. You have 3 county commissioners. I have to deal with the legislature, which approves my budget. It's a $1.7 billion budget. Encompasses everything, parks, libraries, roads, and economic development, health and human services. But I came in, I said, we've got to throw the rule book out the window. This is not working. When we're investing in and incentivizing donut shops and wine and liquor stores, we're not doing things right because we're not going to create a greater economy for all. So this is a nice little picture of downtown Buffalo. I don't think the pointer really works on this. Yeah, there it is. My office is right there, so if you ever come into Buffalo, look me up, 16th floor of the Rath Building. I can actually see another country from my office, look right out and see Canada. We've taken back our waterfront. We've said enough's enough. This is the area that used to be the Erie Canal that was paved under, and you can still see there's an expressway, that's that tall bridge that went through, but we basically shut down a lot of the other stuff. Not too long ago, this was a parking lot, and parking lot, and parking lot. And the Memorial Auditorium, or old hockey arena, was on the other side of that bridge. In 2010, there were 0 visitors to this location. There are now more than 1 million, and it's year-round. We basically, because people, they want to go where the water is. They want to go where the excitement is. So we've rebuilt our waterfront. I'm very pleased to see what Toledo's doing with its waterfront on the Maumee River. I think you've seen success out of it because people want to go to the water. This is a 365-day attraction. See people skating on what is the Erie Canal. And when I say is, because we didn't rebuild it when we were lucky, when they were digging it out. They realized the stone walls were still there. They just filled it in, and then they built on top of it. So when you go down there, you see it in the summer. You don't see it so much during the winter, but you actually see the original stone walls of the Erie Canal, and now it's a year-round destination with more than 1 million visitors annually per year. So we took back our waterfront. We said enough's enough. We're going to invest in this, and government had to do the investment in it. But you see those 2 buildings in the picture on the right? The one on the building on the left, which you can sort of visualize in the photo to the left as well. Use my little pointer here. This was an abandoned state office building. This was a parking lot. This now includes 2 above-ground hockey rinks, commercial tenants, a Marriott, retail, and it's connected to our existing hockey rink for the Buffalo Sabres. This, as I said, was an abandoned, one on here was an abandoned state office building, and we offered some qualified tax incentives by saying, you know what, we want business back in Buffalo. If you want a tax break and build brand new outside in the suburbs, you're not going to come and get it from Erie County. But if you build it downtown, you'll get it. And I got criticized heavily when I introduced a policy such as this, but this policy helped, I think, create both of these projects right here. This was a $125 million project. The other one was a $140 million project. We replaced the blue collar with high tech and high finance jobs. This is the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus. The University of Buffalo was going to build a new medical school, and they were going to build it out in the suburban campus that they already were at. And we said, no, this is ridiculous. It may cost a little bit more money to build it in downtown Buffalo, but you need to come down to the urban core. So this building here, on the right on the corner, I can't get the pointer to work, but that building on the left, that's red brick, that's the new University of Buffalo Medical School. And as a result of doing all this, what we've ended up doing is we've had much in private development. Let me see if I can go back to this slide. There we go. Oops. So all the other buildings are private development except for a couple of hospital buildings that popped up. But we've had more than $1 million in private sector development that resulted from putting the medical school downtown. In 2000, there were 6,000 people working on what was called the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus then. There's now 17,000. And by 2020, if everything goes according to plan, there'll be about 23,000 people working there. And you see it's right in the downtown corridor. It's not in the suburbs. And so we sort of forced the medical school and the UB to do it. They did, they agreed, and as a result, business followed. We still invest in our blue collar. We still have a GM powertrain plant. We still have a Ford stamping plant that makes the bodies for a lot of the Ford vehicles. And we offered targeted tax investments to them as well. The county offered extended tax breaks. Normally we will go no more than 10 years, but we went 17 years on this project, and it spurred a $300 million GM investment. It's not just tax abatement. Every year that goes, they pay more in taxes as it's based on a percentage of the year. Ford stamping plant, the county didn't even have to bring anything in. The state invested $7 million and resulted in a $150 million investment from Ford. And it's the only freestanding stamping plant in the Ford inventory right now, which always worries us. But it seems to be doing well because they're pretty efficient. So we haven't forgotten our industrial past, but what we've done is we've realized our economy is not blue collar anymore. It's everything, including quality of life and tourism. We invest in the quality of life. Oops, where'd it go? There. The expansion of the Albright Knox Art Gallery, very similar to the Toledo Art Museum, or Museum of Art, which I drove by. I didn't get a chance to go in. I loved the Plensa public art that you had on display. I'm a really big fan of public art. But the 2 buildings on the right of this are the existing facility, and there's a $155 million project that's building that's going for the left. It's an expansion because they have so much art, they don't have any place to put it. We're also replacing a parking lot with green space, so that green area actually right now is a parking lot. We're putting the parking underground. It's a $155 million project that the county is putting $5 million in. We also, on an annual basis, invest about $7 million with arts and cultural institutions. We have a vibrant theater district, but we support other organizations, which I know Lucas County does as well. And you do that because it not only increases your own quality of life, but it brings tourists into your community. And tourist dollars are great because you have sales tax dollars that are generated. You have hotel tax dollars that are generated. And those are the kind of tax dollars you want generated because they're not being paid for by the locals. So we've invested more in our arts and cultural institutions, and we've been getting the big bang for our buck because we see the tourism numbers in our community continue to grow and grow as people go to the Albright Knox Art Gallery, the Buffalo Philharmonic, and many of the other opera entities that we have. Local government, I think, has a purpose to do jobs that often the private sector can't or won't do. This is me signing an executive order banning the sale of products that include plastic microbeads in it. This is in about 2015, 2016, right on Lake Erie. Of course, microbeads couldn't be removed by sewer systems. It was something that the private sector couldn't do, but as long as these products were being sold, they were contaminating in our environment. So I signed this law, I pushed for it, and I was very proud that one of the last acts that President Barack Obama did was actually signing a law banning the sale of microbeads. It just goes to show what can happen when local government does take the initiative to take on difficult tasks. It's not always easy to get it accomplished, but it can be done. And it's one of the reasons why I'm focusing so much on economic development, because there's a lot that needs to be done. Dean Barrows talked a little bit about my initiatives for a smart economy. I announced the first one in 2000, I think it's 12, it's been a while now. And then the second version, we did the first iteration and got it done in 2017. And what we identified is we used to be blue collar, but now we have 12 economic sectors that are really strong in the Buffalo economy. Most people wouldn't think of Buffalo as a high finance center, but it is. M&T Bank, top 30 bank, is based in Buffalo. But you all heard of Citigroup? It's not based in Buffalo, but every dollar that's transacted through Citibank, Citigroup, goes through a floor system with about 1,800 employees in the town of Amherst. So every dollar is actually going through electronically through a system that's in my town and in my county, a large town in the county. Same thing with Bank of America. They have huge back office. So you wouldn't think of Buffalo as a high finance capital, but what we realized is we're not going to get Citigroup and Bank of America to move to Buffalo and Erie County, but we can get some of their most important operations here, back office, and they pay very well. So we focused on all 12 sectors of the economy, from agriculture, energy, blue collar, tourism, you name it, health sciences. And then we looked at it and realized that a lot of these things have stuff in common. Land development, no matter what industry you are, you got to have land available, shovel-ready land for whatever the industry is. Workforce development, everybody has a workforce development problem. Right now, I have so many jobs that are going unfilled in my community because we don't have enough people to fill them, or they're not trained for the jobs that exist. So we're working to change workforce development. Tax incentive reforms, I'll talk a little bit more about. When you're giving tax incentives to donut shops and liquor stores, you're not doing it right. Binational logistics and international trade, we're an hour and a half away from Toronto. It used to be an hour drive, now it's an hour and a half, and it keeps on getting worse because the traffic there is crazy. But it's the financial capital of Canada, which up until recently was the United States' #1 trading partner. We had really we weren't doing anything up there. And I'm thinking, this is ridiculous. Canadians come to our Buffalo Bills football games, they go shop in our malls, they go down and they like to ski at our ski resorts, but we don't have any economic presence up there. We went up there to build an economic presence and bring Canadian companies to our region, but not steal Canadian companies. I didn't want to steal the Canadian company from province of Ontario, but if they wanted to open up an American operation, they should be in Buffalo rather than Texas or Florida. Simple as that. Principles of smart growth. Smart growth is an urban planning idea, but if you're not making it part of your economic plan, you're not doing it right because you have to build your urban core. Your whole entire community, in my eyes, will go as well as the urban inner city is in the downtown corridor. You can't have strong suburbs in a weak city. We still have issues in Buffalo. I'm not going to deny that. Poverty's still a problem. We still have issues. But we focused on bringing economic development back into the urban core, and that's brought everything back into the urban area. And guess what? The suburbs are still doing quite well. Other things in this promote a blue economy. Do a couple projects quickly. This one looks very similar to, I think, your Overland project. It's the former Bethlehem Steel site. Remember all those buildings, 22,000 employees. It's pretty much vacant right now. There's some wind operation. Oops, I didn't want that. Let's go back. There's some windmills up in the top right along the water. There's a solar farm. There's one company called Welded Tube. Well, we acquired, that orange area is about 150 acres. The green area is about another 90. We acquired the 150. We're in the process of acquiring the other 90 because it sat there vacant for literally 3.5 decades because it was too big a project for anyone to take on. It was simple. It was just too big. But we don't want people in businesses continuing to sprawl further out. We want them in the urban core. And this is really 1.5 miles from downtown Buffalo. So my idea was, let's redo this area. Anytime you can include a picture of your parents, I think is a good presentation. So that's mom and dad. But there's a reason why. My father used to work there. My father used to work at this plant. So when we acquired the ownership interest, I brought my parents there, and we purchased 147 acres, but that wasn't enough. We couldn't turn it into a modern industrial park by just having this vacant land. We needed to do more. So we went in and removed old rail lines that were stopping development because they basically split the site and no one could go in there and really develop it. But we needed rail, so we moved them. We took them out in the front and we moved them in another area where it was more conducive to development of the property. As you can imagine, if a site is sat vacant for over 3 decades, the infrastructure had deteriorated. The water and sewer lines had to be totally replaced. We put in water and sewer lines. And we also wanted to add a little recreation because it is an important route to our community, and you can see that's one Seneca Tower in downtown Buffalo in the background. So we have bike trails all over the place, but we had no bike trail in this area, so we put in recreation, and people love it. It's not only giving people an opportunity to go for a walk on their lunch hour in this area, but it's connecting communities that had previously been disconnected because of the steel plant. So here it is today. There's the first. We've capped it. We didn't have to go in there and rip out all this bad stuff. The land wasn't bad. Our Department of Environment and Conservation determined we needed to cap it. So we capped 90 acres, which now qualify for lucrative brownfield tax credits, along with other federal tax credits that exist. And, of course, by getting it done in the timing we did, it now qualifies in a federal opportunity zone. It is attracting investors. And we are just announcing last Friday that the first major investor, a company that is expanding that makes a product for Procter & Gamble, will be buying 40 acres of the land and basically doubling their workforce. It was a project that was too big for anyone to take on. We decided to take it on, like I think your Port Authority did at the Overland site, because the private sector doesn't want to have to do this work, and you got to have shovel-ready land. But we're not just focused on the urban core. We have a strong rural area. I have a lot of rural areas and agriculture in my county. We're taking an abandoned airfield and turning it into an agricultural industrial park so that the farmers have a place to sell, so that there are producers of agricultural products, and they don't have to keep on moving. You got to have shovel-ready sites. If you don't have shovel-ready sites, the developers will go somewhere else. So we're doing that. Workforce development, huge problem in every area of the country, and unfortunately in my community it used to be everyone for themselves, all fighting for the same grant money and not necessarily getting and working along. So now we partner Workforce Buffalo, which is Buffalo and Erie County, and trust me, for decades Buffalo and Erie County did not work together on anything. It's one of the reasons why they had major problems. Mayor Byron Brown and I partnered. We have Workforce Buffalo working together on workforce development, but we just don't do it alone. We also partner with Employ Buffalo Niagara, which is a combination of Workforce Buffalo and our Chamber of Commerce, the Buffalo Niagara Partnership, to focus on the issues of workforce development. Because, of course, we were like many other communities, we were training people for the jobs that used to exist in the past. That's great. You're never going to give those people a job. You need to train them for the jobs that exist today. We've been able to do that, and it's one of the reasons why not only do we have all these jobs that have been created, but we have a problem now where we don't have enough people to fill the jobs that have been created, and we're starting to get in-migration from other parts of the country. We also work on promoting a sustainable business economy. We joined the private sector to form the Western New York Sustainable Business Roundtable. We've got a summit in Buffalo on May 8th. This is an organization that brings together various businesses, large and small, some of the largest companies in our region, as well as some of the smallest, focus on sustainability. Because if you're a business, you just don't have a 1-year plan, a 3-year plan. National Grid, which is one of the largest electrical producers in the United States and Europe, they have a 50-year plan on sustainability. And so we're trying to promote that through our Department of Environment and Planning and Department of Environmental Conservation, working with our business community to make them more sustainable as a region. We've also focused on sustainability and a blue economy by protecting our environment. A lot of people will remember this. The President pulled the United States out of the Paris Climate Accords. I thought that was wrong. I signed an executive order saying we have to find a way to create a more sustainable environment for all. We have to find a way to reduce our greenhouse gas inventory. I signed this executive order. It says January 25th, 2018, but that's not really right. It was in 2017. Got to fix that slide. So all our departments, Department of Public Works, Department of Environment and Planning, and we've got 5,000 employees. And we've got a big footprint when it comes to carbon footprint. And so we came together and said, we got to do this. The goal is to meet a 26% emission by 2025 based off of the 2005 baseline. And when we did our report, we found, lo and behold, by 2014, we had already met the 26% reduction standard of the Paris Climate Accords. Why? Because there's been a tremendous change in the energy market. Most energy that's being produced in the United States today is no longer coal. It's every other thing you can imagine: nuclear, solar, hydroelectric. So we were able to meet it with other things that the county did, but it just, I think, goes to show that just saying it can't happen doesn't mean it will. Why does this matter for economic development? Guess who's interested in our community a lot more than they were in the past? Europe. We've had we've had quite a few businesses that have moved into our region that are owned by European or, for that matter, Japanese companies. And one of the reasons they like it is because that we focus on economic development and environmental protection. It's not bad having one of the largest Panasonic facilities now in the United States. It's not bad having some of the French companies that are moving in that never would have thought about us. But because of this, they heard about what we're doing and they wanted to be in a community where environmental concerns mattered. And you know, we live in a global environment, and the products that are made here in Toledo and Buffalo are going all over the world, just like we're importing products all over the world. It does matter, even from an economic development standpoint. Briefly, tax incentives. Wanted to make it so that our tax incentives were given to create new net economic wealth for the community, not just a place to get a tax incentive. I practiced law. I represented parties that went to the IDAs to get tax incentive even though they know they didn't need it for their project. But they were just giving incentives away with no strings attached. Here's a good example of what we did. Said, you're not going to build, you could build everything you want in the suburbs, but we're not going to give you a tax incentive to do it. We want to give you a tax incentive to grow in the urban core. This is an abandoned building, 500 Seneca, or was an abandoned building. Right outside of downtown Buffalo. It was an old warehouse. Nothing was inside it. This is 500 Seneca today. This is what happened. Taxable value was $325,000. The taxable value is now $26 million. There's 160 people living in there. There's housing. There's commercial space. 642 permanent jobs were created, 224 construction jobs. The total investment was $45 million in this one project. I don't have any more commercial space like this in downtown Buffalo. We've incentivized, I think, over 45 of these projects. And we're already generating more money than if they just sat there and they created nothing. So in the ECIDA, we also have strings attached now. If you're going to get a tax break, it's going to be create new net economic wealth for the community. But if you do a construction project, you have to hire local workers. You can't bring in a workforce from outside the area just because you can pay them less. You have to ensure pay equity in between the genders, including potentially opening up your books for us to take a look and just confirming that you are paying female employees the same salary as male employees in a similar job with similar experience. You have to guarantee that your taxes are fully paid, which you would think you'd want from a company that's seeking a tax break, but in the past the county would give tax breaks to companies that owed taxes. And then the big one, recapture policy, you have to repay back the tax incentives if the jobs are not created. And we've done that. And a lot of people said, if you implement these policies, you will destroy business in the community. This is what we've just incentivized through the Erie County Industrial Development Agency in this time period. $2 billion in private sector investment, more than 10,000, 11,000 new construction jobs, 3,000 new permanent jobs. These are on top of the jobs that were retained, as well as an average hourly salary of $21.46, which comes out to about $45,000 a year, or a living wage. So what we've proved is, and I knew is, having practiced law, is if a business really wants to do the deal, they'll agree to these terms as long as the incentives were strong enough to make it a reality. And they did. I got a lot of critique, but now no one's really critiquing because it shows that we've done this work. This is just the $2 billion in projects that we incentivized. There's about $4 billion of other private sector projects that have gone on that have received no incentive from Erie County because they just want to build now. They know they can do well here. The proof is in the pudding. We're at or near the full employment. This was as of January. It's the highest recorded jobs that our community has had since they changed the system, which was in 1990, but based on prior estimates, appears to be the highest jobs that our community's had since about 1968, which is 1 year after I was born. So it proves that you can put these things in place and make a difference, even in a community like Buffalo that people like to joke about because it snows a lot, and it was an old Rust Belt community. I don't like the Rust Belt moniker. My father was a steelworker. I'm proud of being the son of a steelworker, but we're not the Rust Belt anymore. We are a new community. We're the new Buffalo. We're the new Erie County. We are not rusting away. We are 12, 13 different economic sectors that are completely different what people thought in the past. And as a result, we have a lot more growth going on in our community. More people moving in, more things that are going on. Got a strong Asian Indian community that we didn't have 15 years ago. So we built them a cricket field. Or pitch, I should say. It's not a field, it's a pitch. I've been told that. I need to know that. But we would have never thought about that in the past, but now we have a growing community. They wanted a place for their players to play, so we built them a place to play. And we work with our partners across government to make a difference because in the end, government is here to make people's lives better. We focus on all these issues in Erie County government. I've got a big government that we maintain, over 30 departments, a $1.7 billion budget. But we came in and I basically took the book and I threw it away. I said the book on economic development is not working in Buffalo and Erie County. It hasn't worked for decades. And if we continue to do the same old thing, we're going to continue to fail. And I think it's fair to say that what we've been able to do is turn things around such that we are headed in the right direction. Population's up, the economy's strong. And I'd like to say from what I've seen in Toledo that some of the same things that we did in Erie County, you're doing in Lucas County. And I believe you are probably, from what I've seen, about 8 to 10 years behind where we are today. I'd like to see the adaptive reuses that you see in Erie County. You can't find a building in downtown Buffalo anymore. There's empty spots here. You shouldn't just focus all on commercial. Bring people downtown to live. They want to live where they work. And I think it's huge because it makes a huge difference. And what does it do in the long run? It increases your tax base. It increases the opportunities for people to advance. We did that and we were said it's never going to happen. And my response was, we got to try something because the old things aren't working. So let's try it. And it worked. And I think the same thing can happen here. I'm proud to come back to Toledo. I had a great experience at the University of Toledo College of Law. Some of my best friends are from Toledo. And I'm great to see that it has turned the corner, just like my own community is headed in the right direction. I do wish you well as you move forward. Hopefully some of the things I talked about you can learn from, and I'd be glad to answer any questions you have, because we're not the Rust Belt anymore. We are the Great Lakes. Hope everyone has a great day. Yes, sir.
I want to thank you very much. The first time in my life I've seen the Erie Canal, which my relatives came down to Buffalo and then took a steamer to Westfield and Barcelona and walked to Clymer, where they started 3 generations later, Peak and Peak. But so it was I've watched Buffalo as a native of the area, watched it develop. But one of the things that I've noticed is that it hasn't spun over into Cattaraugus and Chautauqua County in any serious way. I think that's because those counties don't have the presence of research universities. If you drive from Buffalo to Rochester, there's a continuum that is the intellectual driving force for a lot of the things that go on in medicine. Have you tried to encourage with the county executives in Cattaraugus and Chautauqua County the notion that there's some ways that you can really collaborate to make economic development a reality for those counties?
We have what's called the Western New York Economic Development Council, which is the 8 counties in Western New York. And I think everyone knows, as goes the city of Buffalo, so goes Erie County, as goes the outlying counties. Our biggest problem, I think, is there's a lot of research institutions and places of higher living or higher learning in the city of Buffalo. There's the University of Buffalo, Buffalo State College, Empire State College. Those are 3 SUNY schools. Canisius College, private institution, Medaille, our community college, SUNY Erie. And each one of those smaller places has like a community college. What we try to do is partner with the community colleges. So the community colleges aren't necessarily competing against each other. So Niagara Community College shouldn't be competing with SUNY Erie Community College, and it shouldn't be competing with University of Buffalo. We have had success by having the college credits from SUNY Erie transfer over to the University of Buffalo. University of Buffalo is a fairly high institution. It's AAU now. It's not easy to get into, but if you do get into it and you went to SUNY Erie, you can transfer your first 2 years and your associate's degree right into the University of Buffalo, which is nice because it's also cheaper. But the outlying counties have their own major difficulties. Most of them are rural in nature, and while we have a big rural sector, I can at least focus on other sectors. Most of those communities can't really focus on much other than rural and some manufacturing.
What they really need is a research university to spread down into the southwest corner of New York State.
Yeah,
So I encourage SUNY Buffalo to do that.
SUNY Buffalo, if anything, they've been investing more in the city of Buffalo. But I understand your point. They would make a greater difference if they moved further south.
How are you handling intercity housing and the lead paint issue, which is a big issue in Toledo? I'm wondering how you're handling
Lead paint's a huge issue with regards to the city of Buffalo. I think you all know that if you live in a house that was built before 1978, you probably have lead paint on the walls. In itself, it's not really harmful to adults, but if you're under the age of 5, it can have a significant long-term, irreversible impact. So we actually have partnered with the city of Buffalo on a task force. A number of years ago, I committed $3.25 million towards eliminating lead in households. Now, you can't necessarily eliminate it, but you can remediate it. You can do a number of things to address it. Our community foundation, it's called the Community Foundation of Greater Buffalo, is working both with the county as well as the city of Buffalo on these problems. We have the Department of Health in Erie County, and I don't know exactly if the Department of Health is county or city-based in here, but I would get the reports, and I'd see elevated lead levels in children, and you know that this is not a good thing because it can have significant brain damage on a child. So we've taken it on, working with the city and the Community Foundation, to put more money into addressing issues. So if somebody has a problem and they think they have lead on their walls, they can call our Department of Health, and we'll send an inspector out and they'll test it. And then we offer programs in which we will help pay, depending on the economic level of the individual, for the cost. We also train individuals in remediation. And we realize that if we have this old housing stock, there's not a thing we can do to try to bring people into these homes if they are going to poison the children. So we have a pretty aggressive program to address it. It's never enough. Government is about balancing budgets, balancing act, where I'm going to put money. $1.7 billion sounds like a lot of money, and it is, but when you got 30 departments, it's never enough money to go around. But we focused on that issue by partnering and not taking it on ourselves.
First, I have a comment. In Toledo, Mayor Kapsukavich and Asian community work together, and we are cooperating in building a new cricket pitch.
Excellent.
Yeah, so that's the comment.
You know what? We should have matches then.
Yeah, and
1 year.
no, but
we'll get the Asian
I'm proud to say
Association.
that because I was instrumental in starting it, and finally it's being accomplished. But my question to you is, what's your budget for economic development team? How many millions do you spend a year to attract all these businesses?
Well, there's a difference between the budget and tax incentives. The tax incentives are giving away future taxes that could be generated, and that is millions. When you think about sales taxes that could be generated for a project, the construction end of the project, as well as the property taxes that could potentially be generated in the future. And then you have the direct staff. Our Erie County Industrial Development Agency has approximately 15 individuals. We have a separate office, and our Department of Environment Planning is about 3 individuals. It's somewhere in the $2.5 to $3 million range, which is the direct investment that we're putting into a staff. And then there's millions of dollars that are provided otherwise through the tax incentive programs that we offer. And my view is the tax incentive should be a carrot to incentivize a project that might not happen. For too long in my community, tax incentives were the cherry on top of the sundae. You already ordered the sundae. You were going to get the sundae. We gave you the cherry anyway. And why were we incentivizing projects that were going to be done? So my view is it's an incentive. It's to give something that would not otherwise occur. And so we basically changed the rules of the game. So while we didn't really change the staff, we changed the way in which we provided the tax incentive So it was more rewarding, and we just weren't giving it out to everyone because they wanted to build a new auto dealership.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The question was, how long did it take years to get to this development where we are? Most of this started being implemented in 2012 and 2013. There was some state money that came in for a number of projects, like the waterfront project that you saw. The money started arriving in 2009, 2010. But as I said, that was still parking lots in 2010. The vast majority of this has happened in the last 8 years.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much.
Mark, thanks for today's great program. To show our appreciation, the Toledo Rotary Club Foundation will make a donation in your name to the Rotary International Polio Plus Fund. And we also, since you went to UT College of Law, we have this Historical Tales of Toledo book for you. We hope you enjoy that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please join us next week when our Law Day speaker will be Rotarian Ben Barros, Dean of the UT College of Law and Professor of Law there. Shanda, welcome to Toledo Rotary. It's great to have you. And Mark, thank you for introducing our newest member. Following today's program, the Foundation trustees will be meeting in the Presque Isle Room, and the Black Tie Affair Steering Committee will be in the North Cape Room. And now, I believe he's here just back from a killer performance at Frankie's Boom Boom Room in the Catskills. Past President Chuck Mann.
Frankie's Boom. Did you write that yourself? That's pretty good.
Nobody else.
On this date in 1941, the legendary comedian Bob Hope gave his first USO performance held at March Field in California. He would make 57 USO tours between 1941 and 1991. Here are a few of the best from Bob Hope. I grew up with 6 brothers. That's how I learned to dance, waiting for the bathroom. 4 of us slept in one bed. When it got cold, Mother threw on another brother. I set out to play golf with the intention of shooting my age, but I shot my weight instead. You know you're getting older when the candles cost more than the cake. When she started to play, Steinway came down personally and rubbed his name off the piano. Over the years, I've been subject to many indignities, all for the sake of art. If I ever catch him, I'm going to kill the guy. On turning 70, I still chase women, but only downhill. On going to heaven, I've done benefits for all religions. I hate to blow the hereafter on a technicality. And here's one to think about. 20 years ago, we had Johnny Cash, Bob Hope, and Steve Jobs. Now we have no cash, no hope, and no jobs. Please don't let Kevin Bacon die.
Thank you, Chuck. I hope you all have a great week. Remember, let's be servants out there so we can be the inspiration. We are adjourned.